Hi, Year 10. We're going to look at developing the midpoint and gradient formulas. Okay, so beneath the diagrams you drew in class, I want you to draw another set of axes, and I want you to draw that pink line there as well. And I want you to put the points 2, 4, and 6, 7 on those points there. Okay, so let's do that now. Okay, so just put the coordinates on the ends of the points, and let me just change the thickness of this so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, all right, so put a little dot there, and that's the point 2, 4, and then I'll put a little dot there, and that is the point 6, 7. All right, so you should have the same coordinates as up here as down here. Now, this is going to be for the midpoint formula. And for the midpoint formula, what we want to do is we want to calculate the coordinates of the middle of the pink interval there, the pink line. So what we're going to do is tag the numbers x1, y1 and x2, y2. So this number here is x1. This number here is y1. This number here is x2. And this number here is y2. So tag those. Now, what we're going to do is trying to work out the midpoint. So I look at this point here, and I come down to the axis, that'll be 2. And if I look at this point here and come down, that's going to be 6. And over here, this y value is 4. And then across, the y value is 7. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to find out the middle of 2 and 6. So the middle is about there. So the middle of 2 and 6 is 4. Now mathematically, how can we work that out? Well, I can go 2 plus 4, not 2 plus 4, sorry, 2 plus 6 it is. So 2 plus 6 divided by 2 is 8 divided by 2, which is 4. Okay, so to get that 4 there, we add the 2 x coordinates, 2 and the 6, and divide by 2. Now, what about the middle of the y coordinate here? So that corresponds to that green dot there. So to get the middle of 4 and 7, which is the y values, I'm just going to take the 4 plus 7 divided by 2, which equals 11 over 2, which equals 5.5. Okay, so the middle of 4 and 7 is 5.5. So what we then say is the midpoint, so M for midpoint, capital M, midpoint. The midpoint has coordinates 4, 5.5. Now we did that last year. Now we're going to use the same diagram now to work out a new formula. Now, firstly, let's think about this. The 2 and the 6 here, what are they? The 2 and the 6, that's x1, and this is x2. Okay, and the 4 is y1 and the 7 is y2. So if you come over here, what have we done here? I've taken the x1 value, I've added it to the x2 value, and then I've divided all of that by 2. Okay, and what about the y numbers? Well, the 4, this number here, that's y1, and the 7 is y2. So what have I done to get the y value for the midpoint? I've taken the y1 value, added it to the y2 value, and divided by 2. So that gives me a formula now for midpoint. For midpoint, I just take the two x values, x1 plus x2, and divide by 2. And to get the y value of the midpoint, I add the two y values of the points together and divide by 2. And that's my midpoint formula. Okay, there it is. The midpoint. So for this, let's do a heading of midpoint here. Midpoint. Okay, now go to the questions on your sheet. So I want you to copy that down onto your sheet and then go to the questions. And here we go, the questions. Now here we've got the 2 points, 1, 3, and 4, 9. And here's another pair of points. You've got to find the midpoint of those points. So let's do that. So we've got 1, 3, and 4, 9 for the first one. So let's write that down. So 1, 3, and 4, 9. And you've got to find the midpoint of the interval joining those 2 points. Okay, so what you're going to do is tag these numbers. So that's x1, that's y1. This is x2, and this is y2. Now what you're going to do next is write down the midpoint formula. Midpoint formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2, close bracket. Okay, must use brackets for this, so I'm going to have 1 plus 4 divided by 2, 3 plus 9 divided by 2. Okay, now 1 plus 4 is 5, and then 5 divided by 2 is just 2.5. 3 plus 9 is 12, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. So the midpoint of the interval joining 1, 3, and 4, 9 is 2.5, 6. So if you do a rough sketch of that diagram, 1, 3 would be, so about here, 4, 9 would be up here somewhere. So you've got an interval joining those 2 points, and you have found the coordinates of the middle of that interval. So that's point M, okay, the middle of the line. Now, do the second part now. So you want to find the coordinates of negative 5, 8, and 3, 6. So let's write that down. Negative 5, 8. And 3, 6. Okay, you're going to tag those points. Okay, x1, y1, x2, y2. You're going to write the formula down again, which is x1 plus x2, divided by 2. Yep, divided by 2. So then, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Okay, now put the numbers in. So we've got negative 5 plus 3 divided by 2. And then you've got 8 plus 6 divided by 2. Okay, so that is equal to, now minus 5 plus 3 is minus 2, and divided by 2 is minus 1. 8 plus 6 is 14, divided by 2 is 7. You can put all that into your calculator. Okay, so that's the midpoint formula. Now, we're going to do one more formula, which is the slope formula. We're going to use the same diagram though, so I'm just going to change colors here. And let's change it to blue will do. Okay, now for the midpoint formula, what we'll do is just dot in a right angle triangle here. So we're going to do the gradient formula now. Now, we need to dot in a right angle triangle. That'll do, put your little right angle there. Now, think back to the first diagram we did on distance. We worked out that this was x2 minus x1. And this was y2 minus y1. Now think back to slope. Think back to slope from last year. Slope is equal to the rise over the run. Okay, the rise over the run. Now the rise is the up component. So this is the rise here. So there's my rise. And the run component is the horizontal component. So we did this last year. Rise over run. Okay, so let's have a look. So for rise, we have y2 minus y1 now. And for run, we have x2 minus x1. Okay, so there's our slope formula we're going to use. Now, last year we also did that slope is abbreviated with the letter M for slope. So that the formula can also be written like this. Okay. Also, slope, another word for slope is gradient. Slope means gradient. Okay. Now, if you're thinking back to year 9, a line which slopes up from left to right has a positive gradient. And a line which slopes down from left to right has a negative gradient. So you're going to write all this down in your books. Now a horizontal line, perfectly horizontal line, has a 0 gradient. Okay, and a vertical line has an undefined gradient. Or an infinite gradient, infinitely steep. Okay, so all of this is revision from last year. The only new thing is the formula for rise over run, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if I write all that down and then come down to the questions. So pull that down. Now, the last bit we've got to do on the sheet is the gradient, or the slope if you like. So I'm going to write the points down again. 1, 3, and 4, 9 are the 2 points we're looking at. So 1, 3, and 4, 9. Now what I'm going to do is tag those points. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Now the slope, or the gradient, is going to be found using the formula. So you can write down gradient equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that is equal to, if you look at the numbers, we're going to have 9 minus 3 over 4 minus 1, which equals 6 on 3, which equals 2. Therefore, we can say the slope, which is abbreviated with m, is equal to 2. Okay, so just remember that gradient and slope are abbreviated with the letter m. All right, let's try the slope for -5.8 and 3.6. So again, we're just going to do the same thing as before, which is going to write down the coordinates, -5.8 and 3.6. Okay, now I want you to tag those numbers. So that's x1, that's y1, x2, y2. Okay, so the slope, which is abbreviated m, or the gradient, is, I'd write the formula down again, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so that's going to give you 6 minus 8 over 3 minus -5, which is -2 over, now 3 minus -5, the two minuses become a plus, so that's 3 plus 5, which is 8. And -2 over 8 can be simplified to -1/4. Okay, so copy all that down, make sure the notes are down, and then do the question set on Google Classroom.